Show is live. Happy holiday season, folks. If you have no idea what day it is, neither do us. That's okay. But we're giving you a Just Baseball show. There's like a weird 4-day window in between Christmas and New Year's where pushing content out is socially acceptable. We are capitalizing on that, and we are going to catch up on some of the recent free agent signings. You got Zach Eflin, you got Pete Fairbanks as well. You have an extension with Tyler Soderstrom and the Athletics that I'm excited to talk about. And then we're going to talk about the other remaining free agents on the board. The biggest names, Tatsuya Imai has until Friday to sign. Kazuma Okamoto has until, I believe, next Monday to sign. So we're going to hit on those guys. Where may they end up? How could their market formulate, et cetera, et cetera. Just Baseball Show, as always, is brought to you by the great folks at BetMGM. Thank you for joining us on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on YouTube, on X Live, or with us on SportsGrid. During our production meeting, which is just a text thread, Peyton asked for my review of Marty Supreme. I could do that at the end, or I could give you 15 seconds at the beginning. I'm going to opt for the latter. Josh Safdie movie. If you liked Uncut Gems, you'll love Marty Supreme. I hated Uncut Gems.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Hated it. But I liked Marty Supreme.
Okay.
No one knows how to market a movie like Timmy. Timothy
He's
Chalamet
crushing.
is goated at this point.
He's crushing. He just needs to foray into baseball a little bit more. I see him on Mello's podcast. I see him talking to Jadakiss and doing hip hop. We need him on the baseball front. Otherwise, I'd give it a 10 out of 10 rollout.
Well, and he killed College Game Day last year in the Bob
yeah.
Dylan movie one. Like Parker Navarro, the Ohio quarterback, got a shout out. That was huge, and he nailed all his picks, and that was in the midst of the Dune thing, so everybody was calling him the Lisano Gaib. But he is a diehard Knicks fan. Like, he won this Landry Fields giveaway. You remember he met Landry Fields at Grand Central for Knicks tickets?
Yes.
Good for him, man. He has as much aura. Going young, he has as much aura as anybody on the planet.
Absolutely. Right, he's killing it right now.
Bad transition. You know who has a ton of aura right now? The Athletics. Shout out Oakland and Vegas and Sacramento. I want to talk about Tyler Soderstrom first, but how was that transition?
I was going to say maybe like Chalamet's a pre-arb extension candidate at his age and what he's done so far as well. I thought that could maybe be a transition, but
that might be worse actually.
He's doing well. Soderstrom, that came through on the ticker on Christmas? I'm pretty sure Jeff Passan tweeted that one out on Christmas. So I don't know if the deal was done before that and just came out a little bit after. Of course, just Jeff's not missing that. He's getting that out on Christmas. And I mean, heck of a Christmas gift for Soderstrom to just lock up $86 million for yourself, at what, 20, what is he, 25?
24. He's a young 24. He just turned 24 on November 24th. But this guy just got a 7-year, $86 million contract extension with the Athletics. There is also a club option in 2033. So Soderstrom is going to make about $12.5 million if you were to look at average annual value. But this guy, I'm sure it will escalate. He's in his pre-arb years right now. He's got one more year pre-arb on the league minimum until he gets into his arbitration years, and they bought out a couple of free agent years as well. This is a signal on the heels of Brent Rooker and Lawrence Butler last year that the Athletics are ready to commit to the core that is going to be in Vegas for at least the first couple of years. Mm-hmm. And the deals are Tyler Soderstrom, 7 for $86 with a 2033 club option. Brent Rooker, 5 for $60 million with a vesting option in 2030. And you've got Lawrence Butler, their young prized outfielder, at a 7-year, $65.5 million extension with a club option for 2032. So you have your two corner outfielders locked up through at least 2032. You have your DH that was a threat to hit 300 with 40 homers 2 years ago, locked up through 2030 effectively. Whenever that year, whenever it starts with a 203, you feel really good about where your team's at right now on December 29th or 30th, 2025. I mean, dude, it seems like this is the next iteration of A's baseball coming to fruition in front of our eyes, like in front of everybody's face. They found their new Chapman and Olsen, and they found 3 guys, and they got Kurtz, who's the best of the bunch, that still remains unextended, but I wouldn't be shocked to see that one come through.
Yeah, I wonder if that's one where Kurtz is sitting on his end and saying, the price tag might just be a little too steep, or they want to see him do it a little bit more, and then maybe they will meet that price tag. So that part's going to be fun to monitor. But I think you look at the timing of things too for the Athletics, right? Like they're supposed to, depending on construction and everything, it seems like they'll be in Vegas for the 2028 season, right? And you have this core locked up for the first couple years at least that you are out there, in Vegas on this new foray to not only maintain whatever fans you do still have, hopefully, but also to endear yourself to an entirely new market, one that's not huge. So to win over the locals, you're going to have to put on a pretty good product, or you're going to have to put a product on the field that people who are out of town visiting are willing to go see. The Vegas Golden Knights had a really, really good start because hockey in expansion franchises, it almost seems to be a hack where you're actually better. I'm speaking out of turn. I don't know anything about hockey, but it seems like every time you had an expansion franchise, they actually do pretty well. Or at least the Vegas team was an example of that. It's not like that in baseball, but also I think even when you're moving to a new city, if you keep trying to do the small market thing, it's not a great way to win over new fans. We saw it's actually a great way to lose fans. So, I think they're trying to come into Vegas hot. And I like that. But also, these are just good, objectively good baseball decisions, right? And this is the way that every mid-market team should operate. The Athletics have been operating like a small market team. I think the move to Vegas has them operating like a mid-market team. And we talk about how, the Diamondbacks do a lot of savvy things like that. Some other teams that we talk about, will take the opportunities when they have leverage to, extend. And I really feel like this is a great, great time to do that for them as a team and as a franchise.
Everybody wants to credit, and this is the case in news as well. Everybody wants to credit the first one. But the question is, who is the best team now at IDing this and striking while the iron is hot? And I'm not ready to say that the Athletics are the best team at striking while the iron's hot, but I'm just saying there are a lot of copycats in baseball that are trying to do what the White Sox and the Braves initially did, where Atlanta always gets credit for being the first. Oh, they got Acuna 8 for 100. Oh, they got Albies 7 for 35 or 5 for 35, whatever. I think it was 7 for 35. Strider, Michael Harris. There are so many examples. You look at the White Sox, they did that kind of beforehand. Like they gave Luis Robert that pre-debut extension. They gave Tim Anderson a nice extension. They gave Eloy Jimenez some money. They were doing that before. But then you have these other teams that are starting to delve into those waters. You think about San Diego. They did it with Tatis, obviously the huge money, but then Jackson Merrill as well. You think about Kansas City, huge money for Bobby Witt, but then Maikel Garcia.
Yep.
You think about Arizona, Corbin Carroll, the big money, and then you go Geraldo Perdomo. Like there are so many teams that identify, okay, in 2031, you're our best player, you're our second best player, you're our third best player. How can we ensure that you are in this uniform? And there are teams that are doing this, like Milwaukee with Churio, the pre-debut extension. But it's fun to me to watch these teams identify the young core and take care of multiple, not just the star player.
Well, and that's the fun thing too. I was going to talk about archetype, right? Where like if it's not the star, it's this next tier of player that has a specific skill set that you're comfortable extending. Maikel Garcia, really good defender, well-rounded game that broke out offensively. Geraldo Perdomo, really good defender, well-rounded game that broke out offensively. Soderstrom's a little bit different, right? It's all about the bat, and that's generally not a guy that you like to pre-arb extend. But something that we were talking about in the production meeting a little bit is, and I know Brett Rooker has commented on this on, social media as well. What Soderstrom has done as a converted catcher and a guy that caught in the upper minors and, even a little bit in the bigs, and then played first base to then transition to an outfield role and not only hold his own out there, look above average by any metric you look at and potentially elite at some other metrics, I think really points towards where his game should be headed. The contact rates are above average now. The power is going to be there, but now you're looking at a really well-rounded player, even more so than a Lawrence Butler, even in terms of the ways that I think he can impact the game. And I think that's why he's become such an excellent pre-arb extension candidate. I think he could turn into a star, right? I think he could hit 40 homers with the defense and be, a top 20 player, top 15 player in the game. But if he doesn't, he's still a 4-win guy hitting 275 with 20 homers with that defense. And those are the guys you feel comfortable given that pre-arb extension to.
100%. And the A's are really cooking with gas. I want to continue this conversation into segment 2 because I have a couple more things on Soderstrom and the A's as a whole. Then we'll get into Pete Fairbanks. But again, Tyler Soderstrom on Christmas Day agreed to a 7-year, $86 million contract extension, and he joins Lawrence Butler and Brent Rooker as part of the core that is locked up for the A's making the move to Vegas. We're going to talk Fairbanks as well in segment 2. Zach Eflin is re-signed by the Baltimore Orioles. That's all coming up in a moment right here on the Just Baseball Show.
Whether we become, so bitter that we can't accept another man's apology. We make mistakes all the time. And as a grown man, you have to say, I'm sorry every once in a while. And it's okay to say that. And the apology, I think, should be accepted. And in this case, I'm accepting it.
The Craig Carton Show. Only on SportsGrid.
When you look at this NBA Cup, you have to think about the importance. As a coach, I find a lot of importance. This wasn't a gimmick win. The Knicks earned it the hard way, and it matters in April as Mike Brown continues to build that culture in New York, and now, in my opinion, the Knicks are legit contenders to win the NBA title.
Pro Basketball Today, only on SportsGrid.
I mean, they couldn't get the Arizona State coach to come out. They couldn't get the BYU coach to leave their job. I mean, it's just very odd, I feel, when we watch this whole thing play out and try and really understand what happened here with Michigan not being able to make some of the splashier hires that they thought they were going to be able to make.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
They have by far the highest ceiling out of any team in the league. Elite talent, NBA shot making, versatility, and the best coach in the league in John Shire. They can beat you in multiple ways. Half court, full court, running gun, walk it up. And they out-execute you, maybe except for that game versus Texas Tech.
College Basketball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Here's Jack McMullen and Aram Leighton, Podcast P in the background. Peyton Gene is doing a great job. Happy holiday season to everybody. Wrapping up thoughts on the Athletics, who signed Tyler Soderstrom to that 7-year, $86 million extension. I want to chat about Soderstrom for just a minute, because this was a guy as a prospect that was a consensus top 100 prospect, and then dipped, and then came back a little bit, and then debuted as a catcher and struggled, and then played some first base, and then was introduced to left field in 2025. And he had so many teammates take to social media when he was named a Gold Glove finalist in left field and say, do you know how freaking hard it is to do what he just did? This is a catcher first baseman in year one, turning into one of the best defensive left fielders in Major League Baseball. And Peyton, if you have it, I'd love to show the outs above average of the defensive run save number among left fielders, because obviously there's a top flight guy in Steven Kwan. Steven Kwan is probably the best defensive left fielder in Major League Baseball. He accounted for 22 defensive runs saved last year, one of the advanced metrics that assesses, solid fielding. Kwan, Langford, Jarren Duran. These are 2 or 3 very, very athletic people that have blossomed into the best defensive left fielders in the game. And then Tyler Soderstrom fits right in with 10 defensive runs saved, right ahead of Ian Happ in Chicago, who has won multiple Gold Gloves, Cody Bellinger, who is a Gold Glove caliber corner outfielder, and Harrison Bader, who is a center fielder masquerading in left. You got Colton Cowser, same deal, center fielder masquerading in left. Like, Tyler Soderstrom immediately became a top flight defensive left fielder. And again, his teammates went to bat for him, but I want you to go to bat for him a little bit. Just how hard is that?
Well, especially hard because DRS is going to be a little bit more, towards the plays you make and making throws, and I think more of the counting, the things that I think would be more visual and eye test related, right? But still very valuable. It's one thing to be there and say, okay, like he's making all the plays that he needs to make. He's making some extra throws that most guys would make because he's a catcher with a great arm. To be also in the positive department in the outs above average area is where it's particularly impressive to me, because either he's just a better athlete than he ever got credit for, or he worked really hard on his jumps and his quickness and his footwork, because outs above average is all about the range and all about math, really how quickly can you get from where you were to where the ball was, and generally how often is that usually a catch. He was doing that. He's making grabs that the average left fielder wasn't making. That's really freaking hard to do. When you look at the outs above average group here now on the screen, thank you, Podcast P, these are all fast guys around him, right? Like these are all guys that can move. Quan, Collins, like Langford, even Bellinger can move a little bit more. Bader, like Martin, they're all guys that can run. And so the fact that that has become an asset to Soderstrom, who's tied for the lead in among left fielders and outs above average, I think says a lot about his game. And that's the kind of guy at 24 years old I'm putting money up against and saying, I'll commit to you long term. I feel like you're going to keep getting better. And again, you look at the approach, it's gotten better since he's entered the big leagues. The bat to ball has gotten better since he's entered the big leagues. And I would have never expected this defensive wrinkle. So this is a guy that I think could continue to blossom into a star there. But if he plateaus next year, this is a good deal. And that's the exciting part.
We talked about it a little bit last week, and I do want to shout out this nugget from Peyton on Twitter. He tweeted out earlier on Monday that the 2025 A's were the only team to win at least 75 games in a season where they had one or fewer wins in any 20-game span. They went 1-19 over a 20-game stretch, I think like a month or 6 weeks into the season. And then they proceed to get hot, and they win north of 75 games. I understand that there are plenty of flaws. I understand that they may struggle to field 13 guys that can get the ball over home plate in a successful manner against major league hitters. I understand that that's going to be the crux of the issue. But we talked about this a little bit last week. They are a 2K team now. If you are playing MLB The Show against a friend and you get the A's, you're incentivized to take that lineup because that lineup is fun and exciting. And you just got to figure out 2 or 3 guys that can pitch for you in a starting capacity and 3 or 4 guys that can pitch for you in a relief capacity. And that probably gets you over the 80 win threshold.
Dude, I mentioned this team a lot because it's like a big reason why I fell in love with baseball. But like they really do remind me of those 08, 09 Marlins, where it's like young, you see these budding players that are definitely going to have good careers. You don't know what range some of these guys are going to be. Some are going to be potential stars. Some are just going to be very solid players. And it's very offensively driven, and there's not a lot of pitching. You know, of course, the Marlins had Josh Johnson, but that was about it. You look the rest of the way, I think they averaged out to a 5 ERA. It reminds me a little bit of that, and I think there's a lot of fans that are going to have a lot of fun gravitating towards this team. And as you alluded to in the beginning of this conversation, I do feel like they're probably not done. You could argue that Jacob Wilson at a lower price point is as clear cut of a pre-arb extension candidate as you've got. And I don't want to hear look at the batted ball data, he's going to regress. People are going to say that forever. He's not going to, he's a 3-win shortstop, I think, comfortably moving forward. And that's another guy that I think they could probably do the same thing with.
Yeah. All right. I do want to pivot to the next transaction that we're going to talk about. And I want to save Fairbanks because I want to extend on Fairbanks a little bit. Again, Pete Fairbanks, 1 year, $13 million to the Miami Marlins. I want to start with Zach Eflin with a couple minutes left in this segment. Zach Eflin is back with the Baltimore Orioles. It's a 1 year, $10 million deal with a mutual option for 2027. So Eflin is back. And that rotation as it stands right now in Baltimore looks like it's going to be Bradish, Boz, Trevor Rogers, Dean Kramer, Zach Eflin. Yes or no question, job well done with the starting rotation?
What if I tell you I think the job still isn't done? Like,
that's a fair answer.
That might be depth. Like, I think we might be looking at roster resource and considering that Cade Povich and, you know, whoever else was plugged in there at the time, you know, it was considered depth. Tyler Wells was considered like in the rotation, and maybe the Orioles were never even actually considering those guys. So the Orioles might still be looking at it as we may have one more spot to fill out here. I don't know. At that price point too, it kind of screamed depth to me. I mean, Eflin had a 5.93, was banged up last year and threw 71 in the third innings. Seems like a great bounce back kind of candidate here that I think will give you a little bit more than a Tyler Wells on the upside. But I do feel like this was more of just a back end fill move, and they're still not done. And in that case, it's fine. It's good. He's a bounce back guy.
I guess my follow-up would be, you think $10 million is depth, but then I stop myself and I think about the way that Baltimore has spent this offseason already. Like, they pushed a chip in on Grayson Rodriguez to get a guy that flirted with 40 homers last year in Taylor Ward. a team that is paying Pete Alonso $150 million is not going to stop at 1 year, $10 million and say, yeah, that's a guy we want making 32 starts, which is cool because I feel like the last 5 years of Baltimore Orioles baseball, we'd be looking at this deal saying, okay, that's their 3-starter. That's their 4-starter. They're paying a mid-level for a mid-level pitcher. That's what they did with Shigano last year. That's what they did with others, but not the case for Baltimore right now. And that's really exciting. Going to get to Fairbanks in a moment. Before that, quick break.
Let's play a little buy or sell. I think it's pretty evident that despite being one of the best tight ends in the history of the NFL, Travis Kelce's play and physicality and everything, with all due respect, took a big step back. This was easily his worst physical season of all. He just didn't look like himself. Travis Kelce will retire after the season. Buy or sell?
Yeah, I'm probably 60-40 on this that he retires. The only thing I'd say that maybe he returns is because he doesn't want to end the way it ended, not making the playoffs and that sort of thing. But let's just say for Giggles that Mahomes, he isn't going to be ready for September or October. And unless they get a really good veteran quarterback, maybe he doesn't want to deal with that either. Go through a training camp and he may not make the playoffs either next year. So I'm probably 60-40. I think he's done. Too bad. Hall of Fame career. I guess good luck with Travis Swift and your podcast with Jason.
I'm buying this. Andy Reid addressing this question this week. Why? He could have just deferred and said, I don't know, we'll see. Fully answered the question about this maybe being his last game. What does that tell you? He knows. Everybody knows. I'm not 60-40, 90-10. I'm on buy. Bo Nix versus Caleb Williams. You'd rather have Nix over Caleb Williams in a dynasty league.
That's a tough one. I think I'm going to go Caleb here, mainly because he has more running ability than Nix. I think he'll also stay healthier than Nix. I might like his receivers more as well. He's got Dunze, he's got you got DJ Moore, you got the good tight ends here. Probably do lean towards Williams here. Not by a hell of a lot. It wouldn't be an easiest choice here, but I'm going to go with Caleb Williams here.
I would agree. It's not that I think that Ben Johnson is a better coach than Sean Payton. I think Ben Johnson is better for Caleb Williams than Sean Payton will be for Bo Nix. I think running is going to be a big part of what Denver does in the future. So there you go. I'll sell.
Fantasy Sports Today. Friday, starting at 3 p.m. Only on SportsGrid.
Just Baseball Show. Jack McMullen, Aram Leighton, Peyton Genus is producing this show over the course of the holiday week, a weird week in between Christmas and New Year's. But thanks for hanging out with us. Hope you enjoyed the college football playoff on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day and Stranger Things.
I'm not gonna enjoy it. I'm already nervous about that. You shouldn't have brought that up.
The Canes may lose by 20. I'm
3-score
game, man. I feel like Ohio State's really upset with that Big Ten title loss, and Miami might be running into a buzzsaw, and it's in Dallas, which is tough.
I'm nervous about that. Also, one last quick thought on the Orioles front.
Yes.
Mutual option that's never going to get picked up. So it really is $10 million. Dean Kramer becomes the interesting variable for me here because, like, if they do trust Dean Kramer, then, and he did have a 4.19, 171 innings, like that's good. That's solid stuff. Maybe they are done. The last thing I wanted to say is I think they're setting themselves up here where if the market doesn't materialize for some of the guys the way that they wanted it to, like, Fromber, they get outbid, or just it's a number they can't justify. Ranger, it's a number they can't justify, or another trade, just it's not there for them. They can at least go into the season and say, hey, we're going to see it through, like Eflin, if he's pitching like he did in the past. If Rodgers is doing what he did last year again, Boz takes a step forward, we feel pretty good. If not, then we'll try to go make a move in season. I like that at least they give themselves the fallback here in case they're not able to pull off another move this offseason. It allows them to not have to force a move later, I think, is an interesting wrinkle.
Can I say I'm not upset if Dean Kramer makes 30 starts for Baltimore in 26?
I mean, he had a 4.19 with decent peripherals and threw 171 innings. So I don't think that's crazy at all.
I'm not the first to say that I wouldn't be upset, and I sure as heck won't be the last to say that I wouldn't be upset if Dean Kramer was a stable part of that rotation in 26. Stable part of the Marlins bullpen in 26 was officially signed 1 year, $13 million deal. Pete Fairbanks, the former Tampa Bay Rays closer, did not have an $11 million club option picked up by Tampa. He hit the open market, and he made money on a 1 year, $13 million deal with Miami. It made a lot of sense that he was going to make money. I feel like at a certain point, the question became, is it going to be a 1 year deal or a 2 year deal? And you saw Helsley get a 2-year deal. And you saw Tyler Rogers get a 3-year deal. And you saw all these other closers get 2-3-year deals. And the question was, is the market for Fairbanks a 1-year deal or is it a 2-year deal? The strikeout rate has declined over the last 2 years, but the ERA is held. And reliever ERA depends on how much you value that. This guy is one of, I think, 4 relievers with 75 or more saves and a sub-3 reliever ERA over the last 3 years combined. This guy has been a steady closer for Tampa. Peter Bendix, the Marlins president of baseball operations, clearly has a relationship with Pete Fairbanks from their time in Tampa. And this is such a fun pickup for Miami, especially after the letdown of their bullpen ace from last year needing UCL surgery. Ronnie Enriquez is out, and Peyton Genis, I really appreciate this because you got the superhero laying on the bed, longing for Ronnie Enriquez. He was such a joy to watch during the 2025 season. He was my favorite reliever to watch on that team. He was electrifying, and he's 5'10", listed at 155 pounds. That might be soaking wet, and he might be 5'10" on his best day. But this guy has as electric a right arm as you can possibly find. And while they lose Ronnie for 26, you get Fairbanks for 26. It felt like a necessary move, and I'm really glad that it happened.
I don't think it's a coincidence that it happened not long after that announcement came, right? I think whatever stalemate maybe the Marlins were at, because their interest in Fairbanks was abundantly clear and well reported. Like, I think they may be up the ante just a little bit to get this thing done because, I think the Marlins bullpen was already a bit of a question mark, overperformed in a lot of ways last year. And sometimes I think the term overperforms harsh because maybe these guys, did take a big step forward, but collectively, I think odds are they're going to struggle to fully duplicate what they did last year. The one guy that I had the most confidence in being able to duplicate it is Ronnie Enriquez. And I think that was not much of a question. So to be able to bring in a vet, I think in general to that clubhouse is valuable, but also to that bullpen is huge. And it signifies for the Marlins that, like, hey, we're not just going to wave the white flag now that our closer is banged up. Like, we still want to try to give this team a good shot to win next year. In terms of Pete Fairbanks, couldn't have worked out better for him. He gets a $1 million buyout from the Rays. Then he ends up making $2 million more plus incentives than he would have got if the Rays just picked up his option. So $3 million more in his pocket plus incentives. It happens. Like, sometimes you don't fully know what the market's going to be for your player. But I think this is one of those rare instances where the Rays, may have got it wrong a little bit here, because clearly a lot of teams were interested in getting him at about 11 or 12 anyways. But I think for the Marlins, it's great. I still think they have more work to do on that bullpen. And that's where it's interesting. I had floated the idea of, maybe re-entering some trade talks with the Padres to maybe get some bullpen help. Marlins fans didn't love that one. But I do think they need to probably bolster a little bit more. Just my one concern with Fairbanks is availability. He hasn't thrown a ton of innings, but he is coming off of his most available season.
Sure. Yeah. We've got about 30 seconds left in this segment, so I want to save it for the next block. But I'm going to ask you, what encourages you about Fairbanks, maybe with a bounce back, to be a top 10 closer in baseball, and what concerns you with Fairbanks, why you may struggle just a little bit? But again, that's coming up on the other side of this. In terms of immediate bullpen help, Pete Fairbanks was the best available reliever at this point in the free agency cycle, and Miami locked him up. Just Baseball Show continues.
Arvel Reese at 8%. I got to tell you right now, I have no idea who that is if they're playing a Joe Bowman show.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting.
Who is that?
Here, but I have no idea.
You need to know?
But no idea. But don't you have to pick the Heisman winner, Donnie? Isn't that like the rule of thumb if you're going to take a quarterback? Is he not the best quarterback?
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Already been doing some work in golf, doing some work in racing. And he said, dial into this call. And they put up this deck about what TGL is going to be. This is like 4 years ago at this point. And I was like, how have I not seen this on social? This is the Tiger's involved, Rory's involved. There's a screen. I was like, this is crazy. We were all texting each other like, is this for real? And that's really where it started.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
My problem with the Raiders is I think they're one of the worst teams in NFL history right now.
In history?
Joe,
Cleveland had some bad teams.
Joe, they had 75 yards against the Eagles. and it wasn't surprising.
Yeah, I mean,
wasn't
outside of Brock
surprising.
Towers, what do they have? Trey Tucker. Ashton Genty and the offensive line.
This moment of the Raiders they just feel so lifeless.
Need a quarterback.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The Chicago Blackhawks of the National Hockey League are now official partners with Kalshi. It takes effect this week. Each side can use the other's intellectual property for co-marketing purposes, and Kalshi will be promoted during home games at the United Center and on Blackhawks broadcasts. First of its kind, certainly probably not the last as well.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
This baseball show, as always, is brought to you by BetMGM. Jack McMullen, Aram Leighton. We're talking about the deals that are done. Pretty soon, we're going to be talking about the deals that could be done in the next couple of days, next couple of weeks leading up to spring training. One final thought on Pete Fairbanks and his one-year, $13 million deal with the Miami Marlins. I want to pose this to you. Pete Fairbanks has a quote-unquote bounce-back top 10 closer in baseball type season if blank. Pete Fairbanks disappoints in 2026 if blank.
I think the first is if he stays healthy. You know, it depends on other closers, obviously. You might have some other guys that show out, but I mean, why can't Pete Fairbanks duplicate what he did last year, which was a 2.83 ERA? You know, you had the sandwich of a 3.57 in between a 2.58 as well. So, like, I think it really is about staying healthy for him. He's got a double TJ guy, if I'm not mistaken. Like,
the first one was in high school. It was like a junior year of high school, and then it was right after his time at Missouri.
Yeah, so this second UCL has already been, you put to the test a little bit as well.
We're 7-8 years deep on it. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's pretty crazy. He's one of the few probably case studies we have of a double TJ guy 5+ years out already. So I think that's the biggest thing. You know, I would say like missing bats and avoiding hard contact, but he just seems to always be a guy that's going to break your brain a little bit, where the average exit velocity is going to be a little bit higher than you want to see, but the expected batting average is always low. So he's just getting a lot of poor angles from hitters. He's doing a lot of good things, and I think he's just weird, and it's going to work. And so that's why I think the floor is really high with him as long as he's healthy. In terms of getting to that upper echelon of top 10, I think it's just volume, because I think what you're going to get generally numbers wise, and he's never going to beat himself. And I think that's really good in a young, unproven bullpen, is a guy that won't beat himself. And I think that's what the Marlins were excited about.
100%. And in terms of the actual arsenal, it's fastball, slider for the most part. And the slider is like this downer that it moves up a ton more vertically than it feels like the classic slider does.
It's a crazy tunnel with the carry that fastball gets, and then that gyro slurvy slider. It just seems to be hitters are either going to miss under or miss on top, and they do it a lot.
Yeah, excited to see what becomes with Pete Fairbanks. But now I want to pivot to who isn't signed. Biggest one is Kyle Tucker. Also want to hit on Alex Bregman, Tatsuya Imai, maybe some Cody Bellinger, maybe some Framber Valdez. Aram, how much money is Kyle Tucker getting, and where's he going to go, and when's he going to sign?
Yeah, who knows? Apparently he stinks.
Yeah, that's what social media wants to tell you. Over this
guy has become underrated. It's unbelievable, and I don't know. Like, maybe the market doesn't materialize fully. The list of suitors is obviously not a laundry list. I think there's a lot of different contract iterations that are probably being floated now. Anything from short-term big AAV. I've heard 5 years at high AAV, like somewhere in between, been floated, and then of course the mega deal. I still think he gets 300 and a little bit north of that. And at the end of the day, if that number AAV wise is a little bit lower, I think teams are going to be comfortable going longer term. And I think he's a player that you don't get to add to your ball club very often. And I do feel as though teams are going to realize that. And at a certain number, like if it gets to the point where Kyle Tucker can be had for $285 million or $300 million, I still think that's enough of a number where he wouldn't rather go 1+1 or 3 years with opt-outs or whatever it may be, take the bird in hand with some escalators in it. And why wouldn't the Blue Jays do it at that point? Like, they've got the money clearly. So that I still think he ends up pushing near 300, and it's going to be hard to say no to that for both sides.
Can you put this to bed for me? Like, I'm just trying to wrap my brain around how contract structure may change after the new CBA comes into place at the conclusion of the 26 season. And again, no idea if that means lockout or no lockout. No idea how quickly it's going to happen. No idea if there's going to be a floor or cap, anything like that. I'm just curious if you feel like teams are holding out because they feel like contract structure and what the max deal will look like will drastically change. Clearly, Toronto had no interest in holding off by giving Dylan Cease $200 million.
Yeah.
Like, these deals are grandfathered in. It's not like you're going to go to Juan Soto and say, hey, your 765 becomes 400 now because of the new CBA. That is illegal. That cannot happen. I just wonder how much the new deals are going to change, and if you feel like there are 15 to 20 teams that are operating like they are going to change.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, I'm not positive on how this could all work or be affected, but the thing to me is I would think higher AAV going through the next few years would be potentially more of a handcuff, because whatever barrier they try to make a little bit more firm in terms of, even if we don't get a salary cap, just more teeth on that soft cap and the luxury tax and all of that stuff, like, you're going to want to have more wiggle room with that tax threshold. So that's where I think the longer term deal actually is okay. Because if you're driving down the average annual value, but you're committed to more years, CBA, I don't think will affect that as much as, let's say you try to go a middle ground with Tucker and you go 4 or 5 years with some opt-outs and high AAV, and then we have some more teeth on the cap here. That's where your hands could be a little bit more tied. So I think if you can drive that AAV number down, you're going to be paying, no matter what happens in the CBA, guys are going to be making $30+ million a year on the other side, minimum. Like that, there's going to be plenty of guys making that. So Tucker is going to be one of them, one way or another. If you can lock that in now and keep it closer to that 30 instead of that 40+, like the new CBA could eliminate maybe guys making the 45 million and the 50 as much or whatever it may be, which I still think players won't allow for. That's why I think the longer term is going to end up back where we're at with Tucker here. And I mean, just look at the numbers. He had a broken hand, wrist, whatever the hell last year. Tried to play through it.
It was a cap thing too, right? Like it was a couple of things last year for Chicago.
And if you want to cite injury issues, sure, I could hear that. But like the peripherals with all of these issues have been elite and continue to be. And that's where I don't, people say he's not elite at something in specific. Well, all the production's elite. So he's elite at producing. That matters, I think, more than an individual skill.
Yes, I'm totally with you. I got to tell my fiance who's in the other room right now that I'm canceling our New Year's Eve plans because I have to figure out the NBA and the NHL cap structure and just like what goes into that and what changes, because I feel
you're going to need 8 months. You're going to need to cancel next year's New Year's plans if you want to learn the
I
NBA
hate New Year's
CBA.
anyway. We're good.
That's the most convoluted thing. I tried one time. I gave up.
I tried to understand bird rights, and I was like, I have no idea what this is. Larry Bird, not an actual bird. Like you can't fly away. I thought it was a bird thing and not Larry, but oh well. My thing is, like, I look at the NBA and I see the Bismack Biyombo 4 for 64 deal that goes through like 7 years ago. But then I also see that Jokic is making $58 million a year, and then Shea is going to make $64 million a year or something, but they max it 5-year deals. And then I see the NHL thing on the bottom ticker, and I see, like Sam Bennett and the Panthers agreed to an 8-year contract, and it's super low in terms of total money. I just want to figure out what structure is better. Do you like the 8-year deal at a lower AAV, or do guys want $60 million over 4-year deals? I have no clue.
It's really interesting. Also, like Connor McDavid, didn't he sound like a 2-year, $25 million deal?
I think so. Like, I just don't think players would ever do that. It's going to look different than the NBA and the NHL. It has there's no chance that it looks somewhat similar to the NHL. If it's going to look similar to anything, it'll probably be NBA-ish. But
I think the NBA is a little bit of a cautionary tale right now, because teams can't even stay together for multiple years now. Where you had the Celtics have to tear down, and I think it's really hard. There's no middle class in the NBA. There's a lot of things that I think you can take from all these different leagues and try to figure out the best way to do it. But I also think the grass is always greener. And yes, there's complications with the way things are set up right now, but I promise you it can get more complicated too. Yes. It can get better, but it also can get worse. I think that's the part that people aren't always, they think just solution. You could try something that ends up not working as well as you think, because you need 2 parties to agree on something. Whatever the plan is going to adapt in that process. And in that adaptation, you could end up worse than you were. So that is something worth considering as well.
100%. So that's our Kyle Tucker and lockout spiel and like possible cap and all of that. I do want to get to two guys in the next segment that have pressing deadlines coming up. Tatsuya Imai, the right-handed pitcher, has until Friday to sign. Kazuma Okamoto has until next Monday to sign. So the clock is ticking on these guys. We already saw Munetaka Murakami sign a 2-year deal. This is on the heels of us thinking Munetaka Murakami was going to get $150 million. He gets $34 million. What's Tatsuya Imai, the pitcher's price tag, going to push to? Is that going to be 150? Is it going to be 90? Okamoto, is he going to get more than 2 for 34 when plenty of people thought Murakami was the prized bat coming from Japan this offseason? I have no idea what it's going to look like. Aram has done the dive on both these guys, so we'll get the lowdown on the player, what the possible team fit is, and then I guess what the market value could be as the clock is ticking on them next.
The Chicago Blackhawks of the National Hockey League are now official partners with Kalshi. It takes effect this week. Each side can use the other's intellectual property for co-marketing purposes, and Kalshi will be promoted during home games at the United Center and on Blackhawks broadcasts. First of its kind, certainly probably not the last as well.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Whether we become, so bitter that we can't accept another man's apology. We make mistakes all the time. And as a grown man, you have to say, I'm sorry every once in a while. And it's okay to say that. And the apology, I think, should be accepted. And in this case, I'm accepting it.
The Craig Carden Show, only on SportsGrid.
When you look at this NBA Cup, you have to think about the importance. As a coach, I find a lot of importance. This wasn't a gimmick win. The Knicks earned it the hard way. And it matters in April as Mike Brown continues to build that culture in New York. And now, in my opinion, the Knicks are legit contenders to win the NBA title.
Pro Basketball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Arvil Reese at 8%. I got to tell you right now, I have no idea who that is or if they're playing a joke on me, Joe.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting.
Who is that?
Here, but I have no idea.
You even know?
But no idea. But don't you have to pick the Heisman winner, Don? Isn't that like the rule of thumb if you're going to take a quarterback? Is he not the best quarterback?
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
On, and let's talk about the mysteries in this free agent class. Tatsuya Imai, Kazuma Okamoto. Let's start with the bat. It seems like the mid-level team is pursuing this corner infield bat, Kazuma Okamoto. Knowing Munetaka Murakami, who got 2 for 34 from the White Sox, is this big swing and miss, big power guy. What differs Okamoto from Murakami, and why could that price tag look a little different?
He hammers fastballs and hammers velocity. I mean, he ran like a 93% zone contact against fastballs this past year and hit 340 with an OPS over 1,000 against him. So there is some question about how he can handle spin, and I think that's going to be interesting to monitor. But I think ultimately, if you handle fastballs well and make good swing decisions, you're going to translate. Your skill is going to translate pretty well. I also think he has more power than he gets credit for. He pulls the ball in the air at a high clip. He hits the ball hard. It was like EV 90 of 107.5 miles per hour, which is quite strong. I just think it's a very well-rounded game. I think you can get by at third. You could also play a good first. And there's a very high likelihood that even on the lower end, Okamoto is going to give you positive WAR. So I think teams are going to be a little bit more comfortable on the lower end. The high end is not going to be as high as Murakami, but he's so much safer where the floor and ceiling are more confined. And I think for a lot of teams, that's a little bit more comforting and why he's going to make, I think, north of $60 million. And
I want to pin these two against each other, Okamoto and Eugenio Suarez. Eugenio Suarez, mind you, hit 50 jacks last year. This guy was a prolific power bat in Major League Baseball last year. But there's plenty of deficiencies that are very well documented with Eugenio Suarez. Oh, defensively, is he what he once was? Absolutely not. Oh, swing and miss wise, he had a bad stretch with Seattle. If you were a GM and you're sitting here and you've got Okamoto at $10 million in total money less than Eugenio Suarez, where do you go?
I think I rolled the dice. See, here's the thing. I was going to say I think I'd roll the dice with Okamoto, but you're rolling the dice with Eugenio Suarez. You don't really know what version of him you're going to get next year, and if he's not hitting 40 plus homers, it's kind of the Santander conversation we're having. Like, he's not that productive. Yeah. He's got to slug over 500 to get that OPS over 800 generally. Like that's the biggest challenge with a guy like Eugenio Suarez, where and also you're not going to get Suarez in a 1-year deal. Maybe the market really softens to the point where you can get him on a 2, and that's where it becomes interesting. But you mentioned just less money. I'm going to go with the Okamoto, where you can get longer term deal. I think a guy that's only going to get better as he gets more acclimated to Major League Baseball. Whereas Suarez, 34 years old, 35 at the All-Star break, you probably know what direction it's going to go if you're signing him to a 3+ year deal. I just think there's too much dependence on launching a ton of homers if you're Gino, whereas I think Okamoto's built to hit a lot of doubles. He's going to walk more than Gino. And I just think it's a little bit more well-rounded at this stage.
Yeah. I want to pivot to Imai because you wrote a great article on Tatsuya Imai, breaking him down, why he could be worth $150 million. And I want to give you the floor as it pertains to his arsenal. This article is in the episode description if you're listening on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I want to start with the slider, actually, because I know Peyton has this. Describe Tatsuya Imai's slider to me, and why can it be good when it's clumped with Dauri Moreta and Hans Kraus?
Because Dauri Moreta and Hans Kraus were only Major League Baseball players because of their sliders. And so all of these guys, Robert Stevenson as well, like if they didn't have these bizarre sliders, I don't think they were going to be successful. Maybe Stevenson a little bit, but definitely not Kraus and Moreta. Like they were throwing that pitch a ton and really turning in impressive results with it. It breaks to the arm side. It's a slider grip that breaks to the arm side, which is just, it kind of breaks the brain of hitters. And for whatever reason, like that pitch shape, I had to go back multiple years and find very specific players, but has always performed well. Like if you averaged out Hans Kraus's wrong way sliders, Dauri Moreta's wrong way sliders, Tyler Stevenson's wrong way sliders, the average hitter was getting bludgeoned by them. Like it was 30+% chase rate, huge in zone whiff, low batting average. And now you have a guy in Imai who's, I think, better than all of them in terms of the whole arsenal, but that wrong way slider might be as well. He also, like, sometimes it'll have a little bit more glove side break and then it looks gross that way. Sometimes it'll break more just straight vertically. Other times it will have that arm side, almost gyro ball type of action to it. And I think that's part of what makes him so bizarre. You just, no hitter is really used to seeing that. And it resulted in some very hideous swings in a league where there's not a lot of hideous swings. I think in NPB, guys would rather ground out on a dribbler than punch out. Like, and that's the difference. And when you look at the history of zone whiff, almost every pitcher that has come over from NPB to Major League Baseball in the last decade has seen their in zone whiff numbers actually increase. So I think Imai's going to be rewarded for that with the slider. And then the interesting thing is the feedback I generally got on the fastball from people with teams is, we're not sure it's going to perform. And that just led me to dive deeper and deeper and deeper into it. I think it's going to perform. I think it's a really low arm angle that he adjusted in the last year. So if you average out his 5 years in Japan, I don't think you really get the full story. He lowered his arm angle. His strike rate jumped. The performance of the fastball at the top of the zone jumped. And I think that's something that you look at the fastball, it kind of looks like Luis Castillo's. It kind of looks like Luis Ortiz. You start to look at all the different fastballs at that arm angle, at that vert, and they all end up performing pretty well. And he hasn't thrown up in the zone nearly as much as he should, because that's not something that's encouraged as much in NPB. He's going to pitch up in the zone more in Major League Baseball. That fastball, as I detailed in our piece, dominated in the top part of the zone. He just didn't throw up there as much as he should. And the other thing is, I don't know how much velocity he has. And we have it up on the screen right now in terms of there might be more in there. He kind of sandbags it sometimes and throws 91, 92, 93 mile an hour fastballs. Then we've also seen him touch 99, 100. With his 100th pitch of the game. So I do think stateside, he might be a little bit more incentivized to tick up a bit more, and we could see that fastball average 96. And we have not seen a lot of fastballs at his release height of about 5 feet from that arm angle, averaging north of 95 miles per hour. That's why there's been some Joe Ryan comps and some other guys as well. He throws harder. So that's why I feel like even if it doesn't perform as well as a Joe Ryan fastball, throws harder than most of these guys that have that 5-foot arm release height. And that's why it's going to perform, because you don't see that release height, that arm angle at that velocity very often. And I think that's going to be something that's different enough for major league hitters. The biggest variable is changeup. He has a splitter. He has a more traditional changeup. I think he's going to find one of those or both, and that could be what really puts him over the top. But the fastball slider combination has me very confident that he can at least be a middle rotation starter.
I want to stick on Imai in the final segment, at least to start, but a yes or no question before we break for the final time. You mentioned that in-zone whiff rates actually go up for Japanese pitchers when they come over. Yes or no, that's because of hitter approach instead of pitchers getting better?
Yes, hitter approach. And I would say a more detailed game plan, not that they don't have that in NPB, but to go pursue whiffs in this league. So they're going to be pursuing whiffs more as well.
Got you. All right, wrapping up the program next on the Just Baseball Show.
When you look at this NBA Cup, you have to think about the importance. As a coach, I find a lot of importance. This wasn't a gimmick win. The Knicks earned it the hard way, and it matters in April as Mike Brown continues to build that culture in New York. And now, in my opinion, the Knicks are legit contenders to win the NBA title.
Pro basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
The Chicago Blackhawks of the National Hockey League are now official partners with Kalshi. It takes effect this week. Each side can use the other's intellectual property for co-marketing purposes, and Kalshi will be promoted during home games at the United Center and on Blackhawks broadcasts. First of its kind, certainly probably not the last as well.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
I mean, they couldn't get the Arizona State coach to come out. They couldn't get the BYU coach to leave their job. I mean, it's just very odd, I feel, when we watch this whole thing play out and try and really understand what happened here with Michigan not being able to make some of the splashier hires that they thought they were going to be able to make.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Crosby has now left the team, by the way. He's pissed. Anyway, you look at it, he's angry. He wants to play. He doesn't like what they're doing here. There's all sort of speculation.
This might be the final straw, George, for him there.
Like, I
don't know why he stays. Yeah, I know. The thing is, he's got a Raider freaking tattoo. Like, the guy loves the Raiders. Like, he really does love playing for the Raiders. But and now, like you said, he's not happy about this.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
We close, Jack and Aram. We're talking Tatsuya Imai. I want to throw you a similar type of question that I threw you about Pete Fairbanks as it pertains to Imai. And it could be the $150 million question, I guess. If he were to struggle, where does the struggle lie? If he were to succeed and exceed your expectations that are already pretty high that you just laid out, how would he exceed those expectations?
I think struggle would be, and this is the big question, is I'm less concerned about how the fastball performs, because, again, I think the prerequisites and the buckets that you put it into with,
they're good enough.
It's succeeded. Luis Castillo, even at this stage of his career, that fastball is not a problem for him. I think command, because he had this command epiphany this past year, Imai did, where he cut his walk rate by half of his career average. He had progressively seen it dwindle a little bit, but it was just a huge leap this year. But I think there was a big reason why was he lowered his arm angle and it was a more natural throw for him. And I've seen that with certain guys where just throwing from a more natural position for him just seemed to result in more strikes, but a little bit of a different baseball. You're in a different league here. Strike zone can have a little bit different nuance to it. I think if it doesn't go great for Imai, it's because the command reverts back to that 10 to 11% walk rate that we saw through stretches in NPB. And maybe he doesn't find that splitter or changeup that, he's flashed in NPB with this new Major League Baseball.
Gotcha. Okay. And then if he succeeds with flying colors,
I think everything translates the way that we think. Maybe there's a little bit more velo in there that he's incentivized to pursue whiff more.
Cool.
And the thing is, he's not going to be allowed to go out there and throw 120 pitches. So you tell Imai now that hey, you're going to go 90 to 100 pitches. Yeah, you can let it eat a little bit more. That's almost 20% less pitches. Maybe he sits closer to 96 than 95.5. That's going to result in more whiff. He's going to pitch up in the zone more. That's going to result in more whiff. That slider translates the way that we think it will. Then, and I think this is the big X factor, is those two changeups. I think that the one changeup he throws is a harder version that looks almost like a sinker. And I think that would be a great ground ball pitch for him. And then the other is more of a splitter that there were some of them that looked disgusting. It was just a matter of consistency. If he has that as well, good luck. I don't even know how you game plan for a guy like that from that arm angle with each of those different pitches.
A couple more minutes left on the show. I want to take it to a rapid fire. Where do you feel like these guys fit? Because there are minimal rumblings. Arizona was in on Bregman for a minute. Boston re-entered the Bregman conversation. Detroit was in on Bregman for a minute. I just want to throw you like Bregman, Bellinger, Bichette, guys like that. Where you think the best team fit is? Because that's really all we can do at this point. It's all just possibly forecasting what's to come. I can't even guess a deal for Bregman. I have no idea what that guy's going to get. What team do you feel like he best fits? Like, I just still think Boston is the perfect fit for him. I have no idea if Boston's going to do that. It feels like they're more pursuing the trade market than free agency at this point.
I think Boston is the best fit on multiple fronts, and I think there's a very valuable clubhouse component that he clearly brought to some of those young hitters as well on that team. And I also just think he fits that ballpark and that ball club very, very well. The Cubs make all the sense in the world as well, but it's just you believe it when you see it kind of thing. Because then you sign him, you can now start shopping Shaw because you don't want to move Owen Casey. Right now, you can bundle Shaw with some prospects, see what else you can get on the pitching front. So I think the Cubs are an obvious one. And then the Diamondbacks, like, if they trade Ketel Marte, I mean, obviously, if they don't trade Ketel, it makes a lot of sense. It just financially, it seems like a bit of a stretch there.
Sure.
If they trade Ketel Marte and solve their pitching issues and then bring in Bregman, that team could be better, which is rare. Like, how do you subtract a Ketel Marte and get better? I just don't know if that pitching trade is out there for them. I think if it was, it probably would have happened by now.
You would think so.
And so that's why I think that fit isn't quite there. I think the Cubs and the Red Sox, as much as there's a reason why you keep hearing those two teams, they make the most sense. But I think he should just go back to Boston.
Bichette, does a reunion with Toronto make all the sense in the world? Or
I think a reunion there too, because Toronto would be the team for Bregman as well. And I think at that point, it's like, why not just bring back Bichette? I know Bregman brings a little bit more defensively, and you're going to put him at third, but you could argue that Bichette is still kind of progressing to a point where he may have another one of those, 5+ win seasons ahead of him where he can really be that one of the best hitters in the game. Whereas Bregman, a deal with him is going to be, I think, strong in the first couple of years and then probably decline a little bit. So that's another one where, especially with Bichette being more open to playing potentially other positions, I think makes it interesting as well. And I just think he's valuable to them.
Real quick, Cody Bellinger, Yankee or the field?
I feel lame. I'm just going to go back to the same thing. Yankee. Everyone's going home.
Yeah, I like that as well. It just seems like we're at the point where you felt the market out, and then you just go back to where you feel most comfortable and where you know that you're valued, and that's how I see Bregman, Bichette, and Bellinger playing out. But we shall see. Thank you to all of you for joining us, whether it was live on YouTube or X. Thank you to those who joined us on SportsGrid as well, of course, Spotify and Apple Pods. We're going to be back. We're going to play GM for at least two teams. I know we're going to do the Cubs and the Pirates on Tuesday or Wednesday. We're going to do that. And then we're also maybe going to give you a surprise team as well. But we will talk to you tomorrow. Thanks.
They have by far the highest ceiling out of any team in the league. Elite talent, NBA shot making, versatility, and the best coach in the league in John Shire. They can beat you in multiple ways: half court, full court, running gun, walk it up. And they out-execute you, maybe except for that game versus Texas Tech.
College basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
Whether we become, so bitter that we can't accept another man's apology. We make mistakes all the time. And as a grown man, you have to say, I'm sorry every once in a while. And it's okay to say that. And the apology, I think, should be accepted. And in this case, I'm accepting it.
The Craig Carton Show. Only on SportsGrid.
The Chicago Blackhawks of the National Hockey League are now official partners with Kalshi. It takes effect this week. Each side can use the other's intellectual property for co-marketing purposes, and Kalshi will be promoted during home games at the United Center and on Blackhawks broadcasts. First of its kind, certainly probably not the last as well.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
Arvel Reese at 8%. I got to tell you right now, I have no idea who that is or if they're playing a Joe Bowman joke.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting
Who is that?
here, but I have no idea.
You even know?
But no idea. But don't you have to pick the Heisman winner, Don? Isn't that like the rule of thumb if you're going to take a quarterback? Is he not the best quarterback?
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.